Hello and welcome to episode number 113 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And after nearly one long year, it's finally happened. The team formerly known as the Bellies has won a game.
Yeah, my God, it's been a hot sec. What they won game one last year, and then they went 1-18 the rest of the way. Uh, so nice to see them get back into the win column. But before we get into the matchups here, and there are some other surprising matchups too. Let's talk about another sport here. Let's talk about hockey. A little dichotomy here. We had week one here, but we had the finals in the hockey league. Congratulations to Alex on winning the league as the sixth seed. I think that's the first time in M-SABR Dynasty history that a sixth seed has won a championship.
Yeah, I think so. And we also said last time that we thought it might be the first time a team that had a midseason name change has won a league, and no one corrected us. So I think we're going to roll with that too.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, there you go. If nobody corrects us, then it becomes a fact. So I like that.
But yeah, no, congrats, Alex. Great season. I know he had my number for the entire history of the hockey league, but he really had a great run to the finals, beating Zach B, that is not Zach R, in the finals, following round 2 victory over Parker and a round 1 victory over Evil, actually, which was big upset there, and just fun season overall. Seeing those two first-time finalists in the finals, just like in baseball, and it was a 6th seed coming away with a victory.
Absolutely. Always fun to see some upsets and kind of an underdog end up winning a championship. And it's funny, Alex texted me earlier this week, and he was like, he was really close to selling at the trade deadline. He was he actually tried to sell me one of his players because he wanted my first round pick because it's a lottery pick. So it's funny to see how things change just so quickly. But anyway, speaking of trades, it's not just the hockey league where we trade. We make a lot of trades in here too. And I wish we would have asked this last week, who would make the first trade of the regular season, and it turned out it was you. You and EBO, you traded Brian Rocchio and Andrew's 2026 third to EBO for Sonny Gray and EBO's 2100 third round pick. Cam, talk about this trade. Why did you make it?
Yeah, I felt like I needed another starting pitcher. It's as simple as that. Always something good to have, especially with Walker Buehler being hurt. I looked at my team and thought that I was missing a starter. Sonny Gray was someone that I've always liked, well, dating back to his Reds days. He's been a phenomenal pitcher. I thought he'd be someone who could fit into the back of my rotation. And then especially with EBO looking like they needed to sell and they were not going to budge on Wesneski or Justin Steele, I looked at Sonny Gray as a cheap option. Brian Rocchio is a guy who I have kind of gotten a little bit cold on, but certain lists still have him ranked highly. So he's kind of been a guy I wanted to sell for the past 6 months. I'm not super sure I love the bat. And I think Angel Martinez, who is someone who's already in my farm system, has kind of surpassed him as perhaps the best shortstop prospect in Cleveland. So really, I was just kind of ready to move on from Rocchio. And I think this was kind of a good deal for me there. I also gave up a future third, which EBO now has in the year 2026. They have 4 third rounders, but I own theirs. And this gave me a 6 2100 third, which is very fun as well. But I think, I'm very happy with this deal. Sonny Gray's nice guy for the back of my rotation, even if he's not the most young.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a nice low cost addition for you. I'm not the biggest Sonny Gray guy anymore. I think there's been a little bit to his game that slipped, and I know he's dealt with some injuries over the past couple of years. I have a little concerns about his ability to consistently get deep in the ball games. But I do think he's a pretty solid back in the rotation starter. I think you were definitely lacking a little bit of depth in the back of your rotation. I think this kind of replaces the Shalmanaya hole, sized hole that you made when you traded him to me. But yeah, I don't think he really gave up too much either. I mean, Cleveland has a big glut of middle infielders. I know they just signed Andres Jimenez to the big deal, so it's really looking like shortstop's the only opening, and they do have a lot of players there that I feel like could competently play the position, and I don't know if Rocky is necessarily going to be the guy. So this makes a lot of sense for EBO, right? They're still rebuilding. Why not get kind of a middle infield prospect that's close to the majors and see if he could be anything? And I don't think they're really going to miss Sonny Gray in the long run. So I think this deal makes sense for both sides for what you both need.
Yeah, exactly. He's a lottery ticket for them, and Sonny Gray was someone they didn't have room for anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I think I'd rather have Gray and Ruthvik second than Manaya and Rockio. So I think on the whole, I kind of want, and the conditional third. I think on the whole, I kind of came out winning.
I don't know. Manaya looked good in his first start yesterday, but as did Sonny Gray. He struck out 12 Astros. Like that was
13.
13. Insane start. Good for him. Having him as a long-term member of the Yellow Champs, I'll be rooting for him, except when he's playing me, and except when it's helping you win, which
So never.
yeah, pretty much never. I guess in a matchup where it's already decided, like today, well, maybe not today because strikeouts wasn't questioned, but if there's a matchup where ERA and WHIP and strikeouts and quality starts aren't really going to decide anything, why not? I hope he does well for you.
Well, all right. But yeah, that's our trade. Let's dive into these matchups unless you had anything else you wanted to mention.
No, let's dive right in. I think the one that everybody's been talking about quite a bit on Slack. Who saw this coming? We certainly didn't. Yuki beat Erik 8-4.
Yeah, great, wild upset. I don't really have words for it. Erik just didn't play very well. I mean, 52 runs in a long week isn't great.
That's
He struck out a lot of
fewest runs anybody scored.
Yeah, 57 RBIs. Was that the fewest too?
That was the third fewest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, he struck out a lot of guys, but a high ERA. Meanwhile, Yuki stole 17 bases. He had a 380 OBP, 79 runs. The pitching wasn't great, but Yuki hit this week, and he got a well-deserved win. And he's starting out 1-0, and Erik's starting out 0-1.
Yeah, are you concerned at all with Erik's team? Like just kind of looking here, Corbin Burns had two really bad starts to start the season, and it's been rumblings of a little bit of a velocity drop there. Lance Lynn hasn't looked particularly good. Chris Sale hasn't looked particularly strong. Andres Munoz just landed on the IL. Lars Nootbaar's on the IL. Erik hasn't really found an answer at second base. Javi Baez has struggled. What do you think?
So I'll say, I mean, I was already going into the season not expecting Chris Sale to be that good, so that doesn't change my evaluation of him. And Lance Lynn was it's still very early in the season. He hasn't been great, but it's 2 starts, and I'm not expecting him. He's old. How old is Lance Lynn? He is 36.
Yeah,
35. So he's kind of bound to fall off at some point. I don't think he's someone Erik's relying on long term, but I think I'm not too worried because on the other hand, Ohtani looked great. He got 2 quality starts. Graham Ashcraft looked great. All of the rumors about him looking a little bit better with his new slider came true. And Hunter Green Was kind of up and down, but overall solid. So I'm not too worried. And one thing I am excited about for Erik was Wander Franco looked amazing this week. He hit 4 homers, drove in 9 runs, and scored 7 times, 2 steals as well. So that's I know we kind of thought that this was a prove it year a bit for Wander Franco. Because he's still 21. So it's certainly I don't want to give any long term like give him a hit in his long term value when he's this young, even if he's just been kind of average so far. And he really came out swinging this year. So I think that's great for Erik. I'm not concerned.
22, but yeah, point stands. I'm not super concerned either. It was definitely a bit jarring. I will say, Erik does have a tough schedule coming up. He plays Anthony next week, who both of us really like. And then he has back-to-back matchups against Jake and then me. So, if he doesn't right the ship soon, he could be facing a hole. So, I'm not really concerned, but definitely need to start seeing some better performances soon from his team, kind of given what the schedule looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meanwhile, looking at Yuki's team, he was really carried by his Rays. Jose Siri drove in 5 runs. Brandon Lau had a 423 on base with 8 RBI. God, he has got a lot of Rays.
I mean, and what when they go 9-0 this week after playing the Nationals, the Tigers, and the A's, like, yeah, this is just one of those weeks you don't want to be playing Yuki.
Yeah. Zach Eflin struck out 12. Randy drove in 11 runs with a 463 on base percentage, 9 runs, 3 doubles, and he would have been my matchup MVP if not for another one of his Rays, Drew Rasmussen. Just like absolutely going next level. 15 Ks in 13 innings, a pair of quality starts, no runs allowed, 3 hits, and no walks across 2 starts. That is just absolutely stupid. Drew Rasmussen, I'm a big fan of his, and he had a phenomenal week.
I'm a big fan as well, and you mentioned the 15 innings. I think that's a really good sign of things to come for Yuki because I think one of the knocks on a lot of these Rays pitchers is that they're not getting particularly deep in the ball games.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're averaging 7.5 innings per start, I know Jeffrey Springs I think averaged 6.5 for his. Like that's really going to raise your fantasy value. So a lot of these Rays starters look really exciting to start the season. And I know as a Springs owner, I'm excited. But Yuki having Rasmussen and Eflin, I think he should be particularly excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Rasmussen, matchup MVP, the first of the season, his second all-time matchup MVP. He won one week 17 of last year for Yuki's team. Are we ready to move on to the next matchup though?
Yeah, let's move on to Daniel and Matt's win. We alluded to this earlier. This is their first win since what did you say? What was week 12 last year? You said, or did you not say a week?
I don't think I said. You talk about this matchup and I'll look it up.
Okay. Yeah, the Bellies went 7-3-2. A little bit of a lineup setting error for EVO kind of helped here. I think EVO miscounted the number of starts that they had. I think they fully intended to take advantage of Nestor Cortez and Anthony DeSclafani today and starting them where they accidentally did a little too much streaming early in the week. Perhaps that could have flipped things because strikeouts were close. There's only an 8 strikeout difference, although I guess it did still end up having 19 starters. Quality starts was close, maybe or was tied. Maybe with some better pitchers are winning quality starts. I know DeSclafani had a quality start today, and Whip was close. Same thing with some better pitchers, maybe they're overcoming there. But the Bellies beat them in
The Drury. They're not the Bellies anymore.
all right. Thank you. The Druries, uh, uh, they won 4 of the offensive categories, 70 runs, 30 doubles were nice. A little bit light on the home runs, 11, but it was enough to win. The 13 stolen bases was really solid. A little bit of a low OBP at 317. And the pitching, I think what's interesting to me is what they had 4 saves all of last year. They had 3 this week. I think they're all a little early in the week, but stole 3 saves. The 8 holds is fantastic. I believe they led the league in holds this week. So for a team that really decided this offseason they wanted to put emphasis in their bullpen, they did a really nice job in racking up those numbers. It didn't necessarily turn into good results in the ERA and WHIP, 472 and 137 respectively, but definitely see some positive signs here. I don't think this is the same Bellies team as last year that won 2-18. I don't think this team is going 1-18 in their next 19 after winning the opening week like last year. I think there is a bit to be more optimistic about for this team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was week 6 they won their second game, which means they lost 14 straight to close the year. They had held the losers belt. They picked up the losers belt in week 11 and held it for the remainder of the year. But now BBO has the losers belt.
Oh, who is the who's
yeah.
the winner's belt then?
The winner's belt is are you asking that because you know it's you?
No, I actually didn't, but now I do. I guess because Jake did, yeah, win to end the season, so I guess I do have the winner's belt. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, solid week for the Drury. Yeah, one guy that you didn't mention was Dustin May, who I'm definitely great for them that he had a quality week. 2 quality starts, only 1 earned run allowed in 13 innings. Only struck out 9 in those 13 innings, but that's but I'll wait for a larger sample size to before I say if he's lost something there. But he's someone they're counting on in the long term to be in the rotation, so great for them that he pitched great. Yeah, Ty France, I think I'm going to give matchup MVP. He hit 5. They didn't hit a lot of home runs as a team. France did hit one of them, but he hit 5 doubles, which is something that they did a lot this week. 30 doubles, I was one of the top marks in the league. I think only Jake had more. Yeah, Jake had 32, but they were second in doubles. Ty France had 5 of them. I scored 9 runs at a 383 on base, also stole a base. Honorable mention goes to Tim Anderson, who stole 5 bases. A little lower on base, but he also scored 9 runs and had 5 doubles. Yeah, solid week all around. EBO definitely though could have won this matchup.
Yeah, definitely a winnable matchup. They were in it all week. I guess we'll never know with some different pitching moves if it would have shaked out any differently. But I think the Bellies played slightly better and offensively and did just enough pitching wise to rack up the dub. So good for them. Also, just a quick shout out to Nolan Arenado. He's only hit 1 home run this year for the Druries, but it was his 300th career home run. So you love to see that.
Yeah, good for him. He had a great week as well.
He did have a great week. Moving on.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Bryson Stott. Did you mention Bryson Stott? He's leading the majors in batting average right now. He had an absurdly good week. Yeah.
Oh, good for Bryson Stott.
And he's hitting 419.
419. See, him 419 somehow only has 1 RBI. I don't know how that's possible. And no home runs. And just
no home runs. He's hitting a lot of singles,
today.
but hey, we can become like a leadoff guy who doesn't hit for a lot of power. That's still a good thing to have.
That's Trey Turner's job, except with more power and speed. But yeah, no, I think Bryson Stott could definitely be valuable for them. I've been a big Bryson Stott fan for a long time. But yeah, do we want to talk about my matchup next or your matchup?
Let's talk about yours. This was the matchup we set as the matchup to watch going into the week. It was tight at times, but you kind of had a comfortable win there, 8-4. Yeah, big matchup between you and the defending champ, and you came out on top.
Yeah, nice to start out the season with a win, which I didn't last year, and nice to kind of get that the elephant off my back of not being able to beat Jake. I won 0-3 against him last year. So nice to start out with a convincing win here. This is basically the best case scenario week for me. Like a lot of my players performed very well. Adley had 2 4+ hit games this week. Started off the week going 5 for 5 with a walk and ended the week going 4 for 4 with home runs in both of those games. Matt Chapman has turned into like a god. He's had 7 doubles already on the season. And some of these are finally getting out of the park. He had a grand slam today. He has another home run. He even stole a base. So nice to see him off to a hot start. Pete Alonso's been raking home run wise. And the pitching too has just been really dominant. I had 11 quality starts this week. The next highest for any team is 6. And that even came with 2 starting pitchers, Fried and Bradish, getting hurt. So if you took out the injured starting pitchers, 11 of the 15 got quality starts. 5 saves, 5 holds will play. I think I led the league in strikeouts this week with 100, or second with 133. 3.15 ERA, 110 WHIP, plays really nicely. Led the league with 90 runs, a very solid 364 OBP. I felt very good about my team and the way they performed this week. One more name I want to shout out. A lot of starters do very well this week, but Jeffrey Springs, I mean, 6 innings with 12 strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits against the Tigers, and then 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts against the A's. Number 1 starter in the player rater going into today. He looks really good. That Cade Marlowe and Mason Hour for Jeffrey Springs trade might end up being the trade of the offseason when it's all said and done. It's very early, but just might be.
Yeah, no, that was a bad trade at the time, and you went away with just with a rip off there. Jeffrey Springs was absurdly good this week. Another Rays starter who put up a great week. I think, however, you got to give the matchup MVP to Matt Chapman with his 14 RBI, 7 doubles. He also stole a base. But yeah, no, you played great. Jake had a solid week as well, not quite as good as you, but he drove in 88 runs. He stole 11 bases, including 5 from Gleyber Torres with a 514 on base, 6 runs, 6 RBI. So he had a great start with his new team. Adam Duvall had a phenomenal start to the season. He wasn't in Jake's lineup the entire week, but when he was, he had a 455 on base and drove in 6 runs, hit 2 homers in Jake's lineup and 4 total. But he did leave the game today, Sunday, with an injury to his wrist. So hopefully he's not out for too long.
From what I'm reading, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back in the lineup tomorrow or anything. It looks like he's going to miss some time. But yeah, for Jake's sake, hopefully it's not too long. He started off the season on fire. And yeah, you mentioned Gleyber too. I mean, that Gleyber for Mason Wynn and Alex Ramirez deal might also go down as one of the big trades of the offseason too. Definitely looking very good for Jake now, albeit, very early. What I will say about this matchup as well is I think we kind of hit the nail on the head when we previewed it last week. Jake's team can hit. He's got a lot of very elite young hitters, and it is an enviable core. And watching the likes of Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez and Bo Bichette and for some reason Adam Duvall's in that group this week, it was not fun. It was an absolute pain in the ass. And there's very more elite names I didn't even mention there. The pitching was not great. He used all 19 of his starts. And still did not win a single pitching category. He only had only 6 of those 19 starts were quality starts, and I know it's the first couple of weeks of the season. I know the pitch counts are pitchers aren't going as deep as they should or as they will, but you still would have liked to have seen a better ratio there. The 2 saves and the 1 hold aren't going to cut it. He lost Raisel Iglesias to the IL. And it's not like he wasn't really able to get holds guys in to keep up with the 5 holds that I put up. He had a 133 whip, so even though he had a 334 ERA, I feel like that whip probably indicates that the ERA was probably a little better than it should have been. And those six quality starts were concentrated among his top pitchers. So, Kevin Gosman had a couple quality starts. Luis Castillo had a quality start and then a 5 2/3. Jesus Luzardo had a quality start and then a 5 2/3 as well. But like Blake Snell did not go deep in either of his games. He won 4 1/3 and 3 2/3. Tyler McGill was solid but not spectacular. David Peterson didn't really pitch so well. Carlos Carrasco didn't. Edward Cabrera kind of looked like a disaster. Nathan Eovaldi was okay. So, if he's not going to find, more pitching depth, whether it's from, Rodon and Montas and some of these other guys coming back for injuries or from a trade soon, like I think he's going to be at a lot of teams most weeks. I mean, he said it in the Slack, and I think he's right. He would have beaten everybody but you and me this week, but he's going to have a really tough time consistently beating the likes of you and me and Erik if his pitching is not as going to be as deep as ours. And knowing Jake, I think that's something he's going to resolve. But I think it's definitely a storyline to keep track of to start the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be fine, but yeah, I think he's got to keep an eye on those pitchers. Let's move on now to my matchup. I beat Andrew, and I was winning the entire week, but it definitely came down to the last day. Andrew never took the lead on me, but it was tight. And I played great. I'm very happy with how my team played, but I gotta hand it to Andrew because his team played great too.
Yeah, his team killed it. I mean, 23 home runs and 79 ribbies. I mean, the 23 home runs led the league. The 79 ribbies was close. Kind of doing it in the same fashion he usually does with the low OBP, but when his guys get hits, they do damage with it. His pitching was the most surprising to me. One of the things Andrew really emphasized throughout the month of March was he felt like he got beat last year to the punch and trying to pick up bullpen pieces. And he's really put in a lot of effort into, doing that this year. And it shows with the 8 saves and 6 holds he had, which I think are by far the most combined saves and holds of anyone. I think the next highest was 11. Great for him. He beat you in both of those categories. He had 3 holds today to flip holds. Like, that's insane. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it wasn't quite enough at the end of the day. But boy, like his team really kept in it all week. I mean, we've been saying a lot of good things about his team all off season, and I think he really proved it. I think there's still work to do, but I think like this is a really serious playoff contender, and I think we were saying this for a while, and I think he showed it this week.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those 3 holds on the final day were just, I mean, they all came in a 40-minute span, so it was just a mess and a nightmare. And I got one back from Colin Holderman, who I streamed.
Holderman for the hold.
But yeah, seriously, Ron Marinaccio, and it was a 2/3 of an inning hold too, and I almost picked him up, but
it cracked me up because I told you, hey, like Marinaccio might get a hold, and then you chatted me back. You're like, no, he's a hold or he's a long reliever. He's not going to get a hold. And sure enough, he comes in for the hold. Cracked me up.
he did. But yeah, I ended up picking up Colin Holderman. I'm kind of happy with him. He might end up sticking on my team. He's the hold man. It's even in his name.
Would you believe me if I told you I picked him up and traded him within a week last offseason?
No, I remember that.
Yeah.
And the team that traded for him, surprise, he was not on their roster come opening day this year. Who would have known?
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah, Andrew played great. He got a phenomenal week from Nick Ladola with 21 strikeouts. Brian Reynolds hit 5 home runs and drove in 14. Will Smith, the catcher, drove in 11 runs, scored 8 times. Yeah, his bats were just on fire. I know his on-base percentage was like upwards of 400 the first 3 days of the week. That took a dramatic hit, but his other hitting stats were still there all week. Yeah, he's done great things with his team, absolutely. Moving on to my team, though, I think, I'm very happy with how this all played out. Bailey Falter, I streamed him and he lowered my whip enough so that I felt comfortable, um, you know, going into the final matchups of Sunday. He only struck out two, but that's okay. I'd say it was an okay stream, especially after his first inning was disastrous. I picked up for Sunday, not Jacob Junis, who's the other Royals pitcher, Chris Bubit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he with the intent of like maybe pitching and maybe not. I decided not to because I figured that at that point that would put whip back into play. He ended up pitching great. He would have flipped strikeouts to make it a 8-4 win instead of a 7-5 win, but it didn't end up mattering in the end. Also, yeah, speaking of things that didn't end up mattering that really kind of sucked. Andrew's John Gray start. John Gray got paddocked after and I was watching it live too. I'll agree it was a bad call. A ball should have been strike three to end the sixth, but instead it was called a ball, and then he ended up walking the guy and losing the quality start. But either way, that would have been 6-5.
No, he would have needed another quality start for reach.
Yeah, exactly.
Today,
Yeah,
which he didn't get.
yeah.
I am surprised.
But
Speaking of that, though, I am surprised he didn't stream another starter today. Because he started Jordan Romano in one of his. So I get the decision to start all the Holtz guys, right? Because Holtz could be flipped. He had a pretty comfortable lead in saves. I think he could have picked up another starting pitcher and then bench Romano. I know he loves Romano and rightfully so, but you know, the saves wasn't in question. Maybe it was a whip thing, but
yeah, it could have been a whip thing, and there really wasn't anyone good on waivers.
I guess like Anthony DeSclafani got picked up and he had a quality start, and I don't know exactly who was available. I know DeSclafani was available, but hey, maybe he could have been the one to pick up Chris Bubich. You know, if he got into it a little earlier, I'm not sure, but either way, you know, I'd rather go down, you know, swinging there with another starting pitcher. You know, maybe you can flip quality starts or, you know, ensure that you win strikeouts. Whit never felt like the easy win to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there just really wasn't anything there for him. But yeah, either way, I haven't even mentioned my hitters. Masataka Yoshida, his first week with my team was a great one with a 378 OBP and 2 steals. Hit a homer, scored 8 times. Brandon Nimmo had 10 walks. He's doing what I signed him for, what I acquired him for. I picked up Joey Meneses for 2 days, and he had a 444 OBP for me with a double. So that's cool. He's gone from my team for now, but he's kind of the spiritual successor to Frank Schwindel in that Erik had him for a little while, cut him. I picked him up briefly after Erik hyped him up for a while. Vlad had a 510 OBP, scored 9 times. Jared Kelenic had a good week as well. He's hitting 304 overall, which is really cool for him. I hope he keeps that up. But yeah, I gotta believe in him. Yandy Diaz is elevating the ball a little bit, but my matchup MVP goes to the guy who won 8 of them last year. It's Aaron Judge. He picked up right where he left off. He homered 4 times, OBP of 436, and scored 8 runs, 7 ribbies. He stole 2 bases also, which tied for the lead on my team with Yoshida and Nimmo. And I stole a lot of bases this week, and Judge was a big part of that. Yeah, I'm he's picking up where he left off with another matchup MVP.
Love it. Or I don't love it. Having to watch Aaron Judge play the Orioles. Thank God that instead of 19 games this year, they've did the more balanced schedule, and Orioles only have to play the Yankees 13 times. Every time I see Aaron Judge bat against the Orioles, I die a little on the inside, which is also how I felt at the beginning of this week. Every time Adam Duvall came up, I died a little on the inside.
Oh, he's the best.
Speaking of, he's not the best. Speaking of stolen bases, well, it's funny because I like to think I jinxed myself because I was shitting Adam Duvall when you picked him up, and then you cut him, and then Jake picked him up, and then Jake just had him start the rest of the games, and it drove me nuts. But since you mentioned stolen bases, one of the questions that I asked you off air this week was, given the new rules, how long do you think it's going to take until the stolen base single week record is broken? Do you think it's going to be broken this year? Yes or no?
I think it gets broken this year. I don't think it gets broken right away. I think it's going to be a little bit harder to get 15 steals than we think it is, just because 15 is a lot. It's still 2 a day. And steals are up, but they're maybe not as. But opening day was kind of an outlier, and as compared to the rest of the week, people were just kind of really eager, and then hasn't, I guess, held steady for the remainder of the week. So I think it gets broken this year, but not right away.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I will say, I almost wonder if it might happen earlier, just because I think teams might adjust to how to work the running game better and later.
That's reasonable too. Yeah, that's
but I'm not really sure. I do think you're right. It is a number of factors that kind of go into it. So we shall see. But that's definitely an interesting one to track. We have a couple more matchups to discuss. Do we want to talk about Conor and Ruthvik next?
Yeah, let's do it. Ruthvik ran into a lot of issues we were expecting him to, and didn't have a great week, and yet he beat a playoff team, and I don't know how he did it.
I don't get this. It's him and Yuki winning this week. Like what the fuck? Like Yuki had what, nine starters compared to Erik's 19, and he won. And Ruthvik this week just shat the bed in with a lot of his starters, and still won half of these starting pitching categories. And then it has a waiver wire offense that just keeps getting more hurt and hurt. And he won 3 offensive categories. I really don't know what to make of this team. I mean, it wasn't even a particularly impressive offensive performance. Like the 19 home runs is fine. Like the 71 ribbies as well are more than fine for the home runs. But like 318 OBP is not great. 61 RBIs was the second worst this week, but he beat the team who had the worst number of RBIs or I take that back. There was a matchup that we're going to talk about in a second that had it even worse, but like his 61 RBIs would not have beaten a lot of teams this week. And for a team that touts itself as a pitching juggernaut, a 5.13 ERA and a 140 WHIP is not going to cut it. So I'm not really sure what to make of this team. They're not good.
Yeah, I agree. I think he just kind of caught Conor on a bad week. Conor struggled. Conor's very busy now nowadays and hasn't had a ton of time for his team. He didn't make a single trade this offseason. He's made the fewest lineup moves of any team in the league thus far. But also at the same time, like Marcus Semien had a rough go of it this week. John Birdie had a very rough time. Joey Wensleydale went 0 for 8 when he was in Conor's lineup. And then Michael Kopech didn't pitch great in one of his starts, pitched well in the other, but got blown up. Robbie Ray had a rough time. But there's still definitely positives to take from Ruthvik's team.
Robbie Ray's now hurt too.
Robbie Ray's
another big
hurt
one.
now.
He landed on the IL after that first start. So he struggled in that first start and landed on the IL. So we're talking about Conor's team now. Rotation-wise, Justin Turner's on the IL, or not Justin Turner, Justin Verlander's on the IL, Robbie Ray's on the IL, Tristan McKenzie's on the IL, and John Means is on the IL. His best healthy starting pitchers are like Jameson Tyone, Michael Kopech, like Roansy Contreras, Herman Marquez, Merrill Kelly, Lucas Giolito, who's been up and down so far, and Kyle Gibson. Like, that's not a chance
Yeah.
rotation.
Is it time to start worrying about Connor's team?
Yes, yes, because
Yeah.
um both the Ray and the McKenzie injuries are not like, oh, they'll be back after a week or two. Like, I think they're going to be a little while. And even if Verlander's like comes back in short order, which I know, even though he was shut down, he was still like throwing a little bit. The last update as of Friday was that he's upped his throwing intensity to 75% and expects to join the Mets well before the end of April. He's still a 40 or 41-year-old starting pitcher. Like, there's always going to be that threat of injury and concern about that. I didn't even mention Eloy landed on the IL this week. Joey Gallo's day to day, and we I think we talked about this last episode. Reese Hoskins now out for the year. I feel like we kind of put him as the fifth best team by default in our power rankings, but I don't really know if we redid those power rankings right now, and I don't think I'd have him in the top six.
Yeah, I think you might be right. But yeah, as for Ruthvik, even though not everything was great, he got a lot from a few people. Michael Conforto had a good week after missing all of last year. Came out strong, hit 3 home runs, drove in 6, scored 7 times. Starling Marte, a good week. James Outman, I guess, might stick on this roster. He had a phenomenal week, 457 OBP while he was in Ruthvik's lineup, homered 3 times. So that could be a diamond in the rough that he found.
I think he
Ronald
did.
Acuna.
What I will say about Ruthvik is every now and then he does find these like diamonds in the rough that he'll like add to his minor league team. Will be like, what are you doing with them? And then they end up being really good. I think Joe Anderson
Yeah,
was one of them.
yeah, I don't think Corey Jelks is that guy, but I think James
Outman,
Outman might be.
yeah. Who?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just saying that Outman might be
Oh,
that guy.
Outman might be okay. I thought you said a different name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think matchup MVP's got to go to the namesake here, Rafi Devers. Contributed in 5 categories with a great OBP, 4 homers, 3 doubles, 9 runs, 9 RBI. I think he just edges out Acuna here for matchup MVP.
No, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to say about this matchup, or should we move on to our last matchup?
Yeah, let's do it. The final one, Anthony just narrowly edges out the tendies here.
Yeah, 7-5. Credit to Alex and Zach. They were leading for at different parts of this week. They had narrow leads in most of the offensive categories here. They won by a homer, by 5 ribbies, by 3 doubles, by 4 runs. 15 steals is fantastic. Shout out Jorge Mateo. The pitching is really where Anthony separated himself. Anthony kind of won like similar to how I won. He dominated pitching wise and did just enough offensively. In his case, he stole 1 offensive category to secure to win. But I mean, Anthony's pitching came as advertised. 6 quality starts out of 12. So, pretty solid ratio there. 7 saves, 4 holds, 3.53 ERA, and a 123 whip. If his team keeps pitching like this, he'll be able to rack up some wins. His offense, I don't think, is good enough to really be competing at the top of the top, but I mean, this pitching staff's really good.
Yeah, I agree. His offense isn't great, but he did get a good week from new Pirate Andrew McCutchen, who had a 515 OBP in his lineup. And then Mike Trout picked up where he left off last season. God, he's so good. 524 on base, 3 homers. Yeah, I think, Anthony did enough to win here. I wasn't the most impressed on the whole, though, with the hitting, but did enough to win OBP, and thus they're narrowly avoid the third ever pitcher or the hitter matchup, which is one team wins all the pitching categories and the other team wins all the hitting categories. Would have been the first since the middle of 2021, and the first since we, I guess, came up with a name for that phenomena. Yes. I I'm trying to think of who the best matchup MVP would be. Um, Normally I like to give, like, if a team has a good pitching week, then I try and give it to a pitcher. And the best pitcher on Anthony's team would have been Freddie Peralta, who had two quality starts, pitched great. But I think Mike Trout was just so good that it's too hard not to give it to him, even uh, though it didn't really end up mattering a
Hey,
whole lot.
help the
Because
OBP. He needed to win one hitting
yeah,
category,
help the OBP.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, Mike Trout wins matchup MVP. Let's give it to him. But Freddie Peralta pitched great. Mackenzie Gore um, is looking good so far. Made two solid starts here. The first one he got paddocked, but the second one he got the quality start.
Yeah,
And yeah,
definitely.
David Bednar 4 saves. Like, yeah, that's pretty great.
Not just obviously David Bednar talented, could certainly rack up 4 saves, but pitching on the Pirates and he got 4 saves, like, man, that's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, are we ready to, speaking of next week, we're ready to dive into matchups to watch?
Yeah, let's or well, one more thing I want to mention for Anthony. He's going to be doing this coming up without O'Neal Cruz, fractured his ankle today, so a thin offense gets thinner. I think it's too early for him to be looking at trades as a solution, especially because I don't think he really knows, what his team's standing is. He wasn't a playoff team last year. I think his team's going to be better, but who knows? But I think there's some interesting free agent targets. Quite a few interesting guys have been dropped over the past couple of days. And I wonder if Anthony maybe is a little more aggressive this week in attacking free agency. Um, but yeah, I'm ready to start discussing next week's matchups if you are.
All right. And we chose matchup to watch here. We were almost picked Anthony v. Erik, but we ended up deciding that Jake versus Yuki has more intrigue. I guess first and foremost because Jake's 0-1, Yuki's 1-0. The thought of Yuki going to 2-0 with a win over Jake, and I don't think it'll happen, but I think
And
yeah,
the win
there's
over
there's
Erik.
something there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, win over Jake, win over Erik. Yeah, that'd be if Yuki does that, then this will definitely change a lot of minds about his team.
how did Yuki play against Jake last year? I feel like Yuki was strangely a thorn in a lot of teams' sides last year.
Yeah, he was tricky. I mean, he's always, I mean, dating back several years, had a very hard team to beat. Um, let's if you have anything to talk about this matchup, I'll look up quickly how Yuki did against Jake.
Yeah, I mean, certainly going to be an interesting matchup here. I mean, two playoff teams from last year. I think there's definitely a lot of pressure on Jake to, kind of come back and pick up a win here after starting 0-1 because he does play Erik the week after. Um, and there's a real chance, if he loses to Yuki, then he could lose to Erik, start 0-3. The schedule gets a bit easier after that. But it's you don't want to get behind the 8 ball early. I know what happened last year when I lost week one, and it kind of set the tone and kind of put me on edge, kind of moving forward. And I think if I'm Jake and I'm defending a championship, I really want to get back on track sooner rather than later. And for him, it's not even really getting back on track. He played great this week, but just to get a W, your first W of the season, and I think is something he really wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Last year, Yuki played Jake in week one. He lost 8-2, and then they did not play each other the rest of the year.
Okay, so that was their only play once matchup. Okay, I got it. Yeah, are we ready to make our picks?
Let's do it. How did we do last week?
Yeah, so I picked myself to beat Jake. You picked us to tie. I won that one. I picked DBO to beat Daniel and Matt. You picked the opposite. You were right. Daniel and Matt won. We both picked Anthony to beat Alex. That was the only one we both got right. We both picked Conor to beat Ruthvik. We were both wrong. We both picked Erik to beat Yuki. We were both wrong. I picked you to tie Andrew, and what kind of seemed, a little bit strange at the time, but had a weird gut feeling, and that almost came to fruition. So I'm glad about that one, even though I lost it. But you correctly picked yourself. You are 3-2-1, and I am 2-3-1. So congratulations on your early lead to start the season. All that means, though, is that you get to pick first for this coming week. Cam, whenever you are ready, feel free to make your picks as I type in the names on our sheet.
All right. I think that I will beat Alex and Zach. I think that Erik is going to beat Anthony. And I think that Jake is going to beat Yuki. So that'll avoid both of those two top teams falling to 0-2. I think EBO will beat Conor. That's kind of an upset pick a little bit. I think EBO will pull it off. They were a managerial blunder away from winning last week. I think they'll win this time. I don't know what to think about Ruthvik versus jury of your peers. I picked him last week. I'll pick. They still haven't changed their abbreviation. Their abbreviation is still Cody, by the way.
That doesn't surprise me. That's really funny.
I'll pick the former Bellies to start out 2-0 because that'd be a fun story. And tie of the week. You picked Andrew to tie me last time. I'm going to pick Andrew to tie you this time.
All right, that's
as a
fun.
bit of a flipping it on its head. Andrew played great this week. I think he'll carry that forward into a shorter week, and anything can happen.
Let's see if I would have played Andrew this week, I would have. I only would have beaten him 7-5 as well. So if my quick flipping back and forth was correct, which I think it is.
Yeah.
It would have been a good one, but in any event, I'll pick myself to win. I'll pick Erik to win. Maybe I'm gonna come back to that one. I'm gonna pick you to beat Alex and Zach. I don't think Alex and Zach have enough juice there. I really want to go bold and pick Yuki to win, but I'm not. I'm gonna pick Jake to win. I'm gonna pick Daniel and Matt to win. I think they might be the better team. I don't know. I think they're closer than maybe they are in the power rankings. I'm gonna pick Conor to beat EBO. I think Conor bounces back. I don't know why. I'm just feeling. I'm just feeling kind of good about Anthony's team right now. Just there's some good vibes there. I'm gonna pick him to beat Erik. Why not?
All right, wild stuff. Yeah, that would be a big upset, and I can't imagine Erik starting at 0-2. But that's for him and you to talk out when he inevitably messages you after this podcast goes up.
Yeah, I'll tell him to talk to Cam. I'll tell Cam. Cam told me offline to pick you.
That's not what happened, but yeah, interesting. We both pick Ruthvik to lose to Daniel and Matt, both picking the jury of our peers. That's a hard team name to refer to. We're both picking the jury.
They're always going to be the bellies to me in the same way that I think you will still refer to my team at times as the Yellow Champs.
I don't know. We referred to that team as the Coens for a very long time, and then the bellies kind of stuck. So I think we'll figure something out.
That we shall.
I still refer to them as the Coens from time to time.
But exactly right. I think it's going to take a little while, and then it'll start to stick. But who knows?
Yeah. But anyway, that was week 1. Great week. And if if this week is any indication, it's going to be a wild season.
Yes. Oh, it is going to be very wild, very, very wild, as every season is. But all right. Guess until then, I'll see you next time, Cam.
Yeah, see you next time for week number 2.
This podcast is good.